Good morning, everybody. Hope everybody is staying warm. I have 23 degrees at my house, which is warm for the day. It was like 14 when I woke up. So hope everybody else is staying warm and no burst pipes, knock on wood and all that. So this month, January, we are talking about subject headings and the subjects page in general on collective access, Connecticut Collections Collective Access. So I say subject headings all the time with folks, just as like, that's what I'm used to in proper terminology and all that. I also have started to try to use like tags, hashtags, things like that, because I think that's a little bit more, people are kind of more used to that nowadays, especially if they're not coming from a museum or a library background. It's just a way of tagging your records and using a particular term for people to be able to find it more easily. If you're looking on social media and you see the hashtag something and everybody always tries to use the same one to make sure you're pulling all the records together. Basically the same idea of how you want to do this. So let me look, and I told everybody there's going to be a lot of screen flipping around with resharing and stuff, so bear with me on some of that. I tried doing the whole page, but then I couldn't see you guys easily. So I need to figure out a new way to do that. I'm going to just look in collective access for a second and look at the sandbox just to kind of see where that stuff is. There we go. So when you're in an object record and the subjects relate to collections as well, so it's available in collections, archival collections, that kind of thing. So as you're going down, you see your regular pages, basic information, physical characteristics, and down here you get to subjects. And when you go to that, you'll see this broken up by Getty Art and Architecture, union names, geographic names, subject headings, name authorities, and all that stuff. And these are linking files, linking to a authority. And basically, I'm going to go like kind of basic. So this is going to cover all ranges. So you may know all this already, but I just want to share it with folks who don't know that. So let me go back to this guy. All right. So subject headings, like I said, think of them more as tags, hashtags, that kind of thing. Why do we need them and what can they do for you? One of my early experiences with kind of terminology and being consistent with entering things was in my last museum, my old boss, and I use this all the time, so you may have all already heard this example, is my old boss was showing me the old computer system and saying, oh, it was kind of messy. There was a lot of cleanup that was needed. And, you had to kind of work around a lot of things. One of the big examples was when you did a search for Mark Twain, you had to spell it a couple of different ways. This was a very literal machine. It was a very early collections catalog. So you had to search for TWAIN or TWIAN to get everything, because there had been some misspellings when all the records were put in. So it was kind of a little bit tricky. This old system didn't have an authority record, whether for people or for words, terms, anything like that. So rather than just going in and like we can do now, searching for a person underneath our entity records, you had to go and do it this other way and kind of rely on a keyword search, but spelling it different ways to get everything. Yeah, findable to users and findable for yourself and researchers to be able to pull everything together and get it all at once, because keywords are great. And I say to use keywords and descriptions and things all the time, especially if you're trying to pick up on things that may not be prominent in the picture, but you still want to note that it's there so people will find it. So looking at subject headings, if we've not looked at these kinds of things before, this is what you used to get when you probably learned in school about opening up the front page of a book and looking at the subject headings to figure out what the book was about. So for instance, this one, you look in the front page and you've got Julia Morgan. The book is about architects, California, architecture, architecture in California, all these very like complex, long strung out terms. But you can look at this and get an idea of what this book is about. And it tells you that it's Library of Congress. And so these are all terminology, and it gives you the title and everything else. Similar for this Betsy Ross book. When you go into that, it goes in and tells you that it was Betsy Ross, Revolutionaries, United States biography, flags, United States history. So you getting it's probably about Philadelphia revolutions and flags. So you can kind of get an idea. So more of a nonfiction book rather than a fiction book. You'll get these in fiction books as well, but more commonly in this. And honestly, I was flipping through some of my books this morning, and it was getting harder and harder to find actual subject headings in things. So I had to pull out some of the more like specialty subject things. And that would be a librarian question as to why that's not as common sometimes. To get these standard terms, oh, let me go back for 1 second. So for things like Betsy Ross, like this, it really splits out the terms of not just saying like revolutionaries, because when you think about it, if you say just revolutionaries, we're very focused on Connecticut and at least America normally in our line of work here. But if you just looked up revolutionaries, in theory, you're going to get Che Guevara, you're going to get revolutionaries in the entire world kind of thing. So you need to separate these kind of down a little bit. And, you know, talking about flags, you want flags in everywhere or flags just in the US, flags having to do with history. So there's a different way of breaking these down. These are very cumbersome, trying to figure out how to do this way, or figure out if you're not a librarian and not really wedded to this, like how this goes. Previously, some of you may have seen these kicking around your libraries or historical societies. These are the Library of Congress subject heading books. These are the things that you used to have to go to find out what the correct subject heading was, to make sure you're using the same terminology. So you're not just using revolutionary flags. You're using that flags, United States history, whatever that long thing was. So kind of the idea of the twain thing, you want to search and be able to look up one thing as opposed to like a bunch of different things. But these used to be the books to go to look through. I told my librarian at Fairfield the other day, he's doing some weeding, and I told him, like, whatever you do, don't get rid of these, because I still find them really entertaining sometimes. I don't ever have to look at them usually, because I'll show you how our system's set up. But they're really interesting, and they're also a really good visual aid for stuff like this, to say that this is what they looked like. They're heavy. They're really big. If you've not seen them in person, they're probably like, I don't know, 3 inches wide, maybe a little bit more. They're tomes in very small print. But this used to be what you would have to go to. This used to be what I had to go to at my old museum to look up terminology for some of the things that we were using, because my system, we were adding our own terms, but we were basing it on this. Whole nother topic. Now they have, this is actually the old version of Library of Congress authorities to look up. I find this one easier to navigate rather than going to the other one. It's a little bit more generic user-friendly as opposed to like librarian professional usability. But I would go to this one and look up terms to find what term I should be using for my cataloging record. You know, it would tell you up here, source of headings is the Library of Congress catalog. And things like Civil War would be really tricky when we were putting things in. And it's kind of, I don't think it's as tricky to look up now, because they are continually working on the terminology. But if you're just like, oh yeah, the Civil War, again, very US centric, you know, the war of the North and South and America and blue and gray and all of that. You'd search for Civil War and you notice that there's down here, just this is the general Civil War terminology for civil wars anywhere. interstate war rebellions, international law, like all these other things. They did narrow it down for individual civil wars. Like if you wanted to just say, oh, no, I mean the US Civil War. So they broke it down to United States history, Civil War, 61 to 65. Oh, okay, that's what I want. As a random regular person, you're never going to know that and be able to construct that necessarily on your own, because in your head, you're thinking Civil War. So here's kind of a screenshot of one of the pages from the sandbox and how you would use different things. And we'll get into what all the different terms and things are, sections are in a bit, but giving you just kind of the snapshot of, I'm talking about the grain stacks painting. Oh, this is by Claude Monet. So we want to make sure that this name is the way we want it. We're just not saying Monet, Claude, oh, some guy, I don't know his dates. I guess he was a painter, whatever. It also lets you break things out by styles, artists, things like that in this page. And there's much more to this, and we'll get into that later as well, probably in future sessions, because this is going to be one of those three-parters. So we're going to be concentrating on different things each week, or building up to different things each week. So you may think too, like, okay, well, that's all great, and I kind of understand how this works in my records, I guess, but what good does this do me in other places? This does really well for you if you're on the public portal. It does do well for you in your own, cataloging. But when you're looking at sharing and throwing it out to people and looking at the public portal, they come in handy for being able to filter down to different records. So if you're on the portal and you search for Mark Twain, and I'm just going to do that in quotations, so it's going to search it as a group name. So, okay, there's a bunch of stuff. Some of them are portraits of him, some of them are books, some of them are just keying on the Mark Twain House and Museum catalog part of it, saying they're the ownership. So what you can do on our portal is go to full results, and you're like, no, I don't care about the actual museum. I'm sure they have other stuff too. No offense, Jody, but I just want to see like portraits or something to do like with the guy, not necessarily all this other stuff, like more directly to the guy. So you can go down to your filters and go down to, we've tried to make these names a little bit more user friendly. They all link to one of the really specific subject heading authorities in our records, but we tried to make it a little bit more like usable for general thing. So if you want to do Library of Congress names, if you click on that, there's stuff that's coming up with related to him, but then there's also, you get down here and see Clemens Samuel Langhorne, 1835 to 1910. Okay, awesome. And there's two sets, and I'm not sure why, but I'm going to look into it just because I'm curious. So if you click on one of them and then click apply, it'll just show up things that have been like tagged, for lack of better terminology, as being Mark Twain. In this case, like images of Mark Twain, except for the brick. So it kind of helps you break things down into those records. And you can go into his record, and he's got related people, Clara Clemens, and here's related people. Oh, this is actually him. So this is a person's name in this, and also the Mark Twain name too. And I would think that would be kind of, I haven't tried it too much, could be kind of confusing to people about which name to search. So in something like this, having both terminologies on there is really good, because you never know. I mean, my inclination, honestly, is to always just search for Mark Twain when I'm looking for this individual. I'm sure for other people, it's much more like Jody at Twain, it's probably much more, intuitive to search for Samuel Clemens. So having both of those on there is really good. Let me see. Let's go back a little bit. So there's also, let me get rid of my filter. So if you're on the portal and you filtered and you kind of want to get rid of your filters or do something else, you can either go to start over or just unclick one of the names. So we want to uncheck that Samuel Clemens name, and it'll go back to where you were. So pretty useful if you've like decided I've narrowed down like way too far. I'm just not going to go that way. And you say you want to go back in and go, you know what, I meant to look by all the institutions that have something to do with him. Not surprisingly, Twain has 35 things. Matitech has 4, so I'm curious what Matitech has that's got this in the search terms. And you can do as many terms as you want. So you can check off however many things and then click apply. So if you wanted to check everybody except for Twain House, you could do that and say like, who else has all this stuff? We know they have stuff, and then hit apply. So that's always really handy too. And no idea why these are marked that way. It's really interesting. So you'd have to go into the record and see mid-century print from the Matitech, which is, I'm assuming, is a big image because it's not coming up. I have to do that. Photographer, maybe? Don't know. Ooh, and now I have to look and see why this image doesn't come up. That's interesting. But that image comes up. So, and you can see in here that they've just had it named in the title. So they've not tagged it with anything. They've not added a subject heading. This would be something I would want to add a subject heading to. So it's included in all of the works. Go back to this again at the beginning. I'm just taking the easy way out and just starting back at the main page. So as we get into this, these do get confusing about which authority fields and which things relate to other things. There is in the manual still being worked on. You've heard this before. This page will still be in there under the appendix, kind of a explanation of subjects in which fields do what. And this will pretty much stay the same. So if you go into your current manual and look into it, it'll go in and kind of give you a little bit more explanation of what it is. But the general concept of the subject heading is there in overarching all of this. Picking a term that you know is one term that will get you the same results and things. So going into, oh, actually, let me look at Library of Congress a little bit. And I was just going to do kind of a live search on this. This is that Civil War search. And again, I can give you, I think that links are in the manual in that one page that I just showed you. But if you want the links to any of these, I can give them to you. This one's a little harder to find because it is so old, but it is generally, you know, works well. So you'd get terms like this, and we won't go into like looking at all this. Go and play with it sometime if you want, because it's just interesting. So you're looking in here, authority record, and you get a couple different things. So you kind of have to dig into them a little bit to see what they're actually used for. And it gives you all the technical information. So if you are based in library world and you want to know what all the number fields are and know where it's supposed to go and which thing, it's all right here. So it's really useful. I tend to a lot of the time go into labeled display because it gives it a more layman's explanation of what things are. This is really specifically the title heading of a book, and it's from the Time Life Civil War book series. So that isn't what you would want for your subject heading if you were linking. You're not going through this way, but just to kind of know that that's out there. And you get more down into this with that Civil War, which is that screen grab that I did before. And you go down and see individual civil wars, United States history, Civil War, 1861 to 65. Label display. And this is more here giving it that. This is still that overall Civil War thing. So if you were looking for, and I actually forget if it's doing it well or not in this. So if you're in your, we'll do this in the sandbox. If you're in your record, and we'll just go to like a random, actually, I'm sure I have like plenty of test records in here. It doesn't really matter. We can do anything to any record in here anyway, but. somebody did one over here that I added images to. So if you're going down and go to your subjects page and you're going for your Library of Congress subject headings, remind me of the note about the name authority file in a second. Subject headings, Civil War. And when you're entering these or searching for these, do not hit the enter button. Kind of like a couple of the other things with the linking to something like the entity records and things, don't hit enter because the system will start searching for you. So you want it to just sit and start searching. So when you're looking at this, you can say, oh, Civil War, okay, border states, oh yeah, so you're going down, and it sometimes takes a minute to get to the one that you want, which is why I do sometimes go to that Library of Congress page so I can just straight out copy the name and search for it and it goes in. I don't know why these sort the way that they do and why they come up that way. But we're getting close with, I just went by United States Civil War, cavalry operations, regimental histories. There's so many Civil War topics in this, it would be almost impossible to do it. Sometimes they'll just, oh, it's Washington, no, I just want the regular Civil War one. Sometimes I'll just either back up out of it. I don't remember if this works. Nope. I'll copy this and just try to add a new one with that term and see what it does. A little bit closer. Civil War is like a good example and a bad example because it's really, really specific. But it's really specific. So sometimes you do just need to go in and do, and I don't know, librarian folks will have to answer this for me. Back when I started using these, everything had, all the subject headings had a period at the end. And there we go. Yay, it only took like a half hour to get there, but we're there in the end. There used to be a period at the end of everything, and now they've gotten rid of it in the last several years. So I'm not sure what the impetus was for that, but it no longer has period on the end usually. So it's just straight at the end. Oh, let me do save because something else I wanted to just show you. Here's my refresh. Oh, no, it's still working. Weird. Back to the main page and see if it likes it. No, it's still spinning. There we go. So now this terminology is added in there. Once it's linked in, when you click this more button, it'll give you like a link to actual Library of Congress page with the authority records and all that stuff. This is the current page. I mean, it's fine for searching as well. Like I said, I'm just, old and stuck in my ways and I use the other one, but this also does give you the variants of different things as well to search. These are the components: United States history, Civil War, variants, American Civil War. I don't know if that would work if I put that in the search terms, but you can always try it. But it gives you like narrower terms to narrow down the topic. And I don't know if this one gives you broader terms. One of the sources didn't give you broader sometimes, but it's just kind of interesting to look around if you like weird subject heading stuff like this. But that's a link right out of the term that you're linking to from here. So you can see like, oh yeah, this is totally the correct term. That's totally what I want. So a note about the name authority files. When they say name, they are talking about any kind of formal specific name, and it goes honestly from people to buildings can be in here as well. So if you're searching for a person, you do go last name, comma first. We'll use our buddy. And again, not hitting enter, just letting it kind of spin and see what it comes up with. Oh, I like this. So probably this guy, but I don't know because that date seems weird, but I don't know. I'd have to ask Jody. Maybe it's fine. But then you also have spirit, which is kind of interesting. That makes me want to go into that other terminology and just search and see what it's for. But then you're getting Clemens, Olivia Langdon, and all that stuff. So we're going to click on him and then save. And this is partially just to get to that more button to see where it's sending us. Okay, here's all the variants, 18 million different languages, birth and death dates, descriptors, associated places, not Hartford, rude. See also all these other people. So then you've got his full name there, which is, where, like I said, with Twain House, putting both names in a lot of their topics is a really good idea. It gets you into all kinds of different stuff like that. So back to the sandbox. So if you also were searching for Samuel and see what you come up with. And this is where people's names, you want to be a little bit careful or know your dates ahead of time. And this is where I sometimes do go searching in that old school one so I can kind of check out what that informal description is. Because you don't necessarily want to jump on the first guy that you see. Because here you've got Clemens, Samuel, approximately, wait, this doesn't match our guy. What the heck's going on? So if you clicked on this guy and saved it, when you looked, and I don't click it to save to just look at it where it is on this. I would actually go to that old page and kind of look it up and see. But you can get more out of this and see who this is, maybe. This is also why I like the other old school page. Because I want to say it was like his father. Oh yeah, grandfather. Here we go. Found, this is the source where this came from, the ancestor Samuel Clemens, grandfather of Mark Twain. So this is not the guy that we want. Very easy as usual to move stuff around in your actual record. You go, oh shoot, I accidentally clicked on the wrong guy. You just click the X and save it and it's all set. And you're back to your normal stuff here. Buildings. So if you're searching for a particular building that has a title or something like that, or is in a particular place. Actually, I'm gonna try Twain again, frankly. I don't know if it's in here or not. Oh, there we go. So actual legit name, Mark Twain House and Museum, Hartford, Connecticut. So that's the actual name of the building. So if you were looking in the Mark Twain House and Museum in one of the other fields, you may not get it because it might be only in there as a name authority file. So think of that if you're coming up with a search and not coming up with something, go, wait a minute, maybe this is a named thing. I had that happen with quite a few buildings in Fairfield when I was trying to look stuff up, and then all of a sudden it clicked. I went, oh, I bet this is actually a named thing. So let me search under that. Happens a lot with churches and schools. Also schools for named places, not just buildings. Actually, I'm curious. I'm gonna look up my school and see if it comes up as like, oops, as a named thing. And sometimes if you mess up and you have to retype, you have to kind of go in and just redo the things because it messes up that automatic search. Yeah, there we go. Roger Williams University, Bristol, Rhode Island. So there's my school. So especially like if you're looking up school buildings or museums or something like that, think of going into that field to look it up. That also makes it useful when you're going into, oh, I should have done cows. I like the cows one. If you're going into search and do your results, that also gives you that names thing in here. So we've got something relating to P.T. Barnum. Oh, I've only got one Mabel Asgood right with cows in it. That's shocking. And you can see sometimes, oh, and I meant to say too, let me see if it'll let me go back. You'll see the little in parentheses there. That gives you the count of how many records are included in that thing. So in this one, if I do it as a subject, there's one in each one of these. right now, this is not being widely used by everyone, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this kind of series for office hours beginning this year, because I think it's something that is really useful. It's super useful when you're getting to this aspect of it. And I mean, it's also useful in-house too. If your director is like, okay, we're having a big cow celebration. Give me everything you have on cows. And you're like, you may have had in a note, like this family used to keep cows, but the actual image or record or thing doesn't actually have anything to do with cows, but it was just an interesting factoid. If you just did a keyword search, that record's going to come up. But if you do it as a subject in there, you'll be like, oh, okay, there's cows as photographs or as paintings or things like that. It helps you do that as well. Okay, let's skip Getty for a second. This does help with kind of another example too, is I will go with quilts. Actually, I should just say quilts. Library of Congress and most of the other authorities will tend to, the term will be in plural. So if you're searching for something, do it in a plural, as opposed to here, when I want to see what we have for quilts or look for quilt in this. So if I'm naming something in my record, I'm just going to say quilt. I'm not going to say quilts. So searching in the singular is more useful in the portal and in your own collection. So if I look in here, I've got 261 results on the portal for quilts, and they're kind of from all over the place, and it's a whole bunch of collection of different kinds of things. I love seeing the quilts on here because most people, they'll put priority to cataloging those some of the time, or at least imaging them. So you can see like all the kind of cool stuff that the state has, we as a state have. So if you want to go in and narrow this down, let's see some of your choices. And this is really interesting because now it's, you're seeing your 261, but you're seeing some of the stuff that came out of that quilt search. And I'm not going to go in and try to figure out why these came up in that. Sometimes it's hard to tell because it can be buried down in like a description or a condition report or something that may not show up. So your condition reports won't show up in the portal, but it may still search it on the back end. So this is one of the reasons I love the filter. So if we want to look at subjects, and there's a bunch of different topics that people have put on this. And this is just keeping in mind what the thing is about. We're not talking about the classification at this point. That's right above that. And I'll touch on it briefly, but I think classification will be its own session next month. I think is probably the best one to do that one next. So you can see going through what some of these are. Hopefully you can see these are really tiny. Make it a little bit bigger. So patchwork quilts, somebody's put in questionnaires, interesting. Quilting in general. And some of these, you want to think about the aboutness of the record that you're putting in. So, and it does take a while. This isn't like something, this whole subject thing and what to add when isn't something you pick up like instantly. It kind of takes a little bit more, a little working around and kind of looking to see what's out there and some other places are doing. I have no idea. I'm curious. What does quilt have to do with the American Revolution? This is another one of those like war history things. United States history, revolution, 1775. I think that's like kind of related, but I think American Revolution might be in there as a subject heading. But again, that's one of those like, go through and look and see. Oh, and very important, and I 100% always forget to do this, click apply after you've put your heading in. There we go, this little sneaky apply button down at the bottom, then it won't do anything. And then you sit there and stare at your screen and wonder why it's not doing anything. Okay, I'm still spinning because I know this is really hard to see from your guys' stuff. So that's really interesting, the results that you come up with. So again, that's kind of I don't know what this has to do with, a quilt in this, but okay, see what people put out there. And I'm not going to dive into this because I'm sure it totally makes sense when you look at the record. So now I'm actually going to get rid of this part and go back. This is why it's sometimes just fun to poke around and you get on here looking for something else, and it's very easy to get sidetracked into other stuff. And I'm still spinning way up here in the corner where you probably can't see. I could also start over too, and that's one of those, if you get too deep or you want to do something else, if you go to the start over, you can do that, or just go up and do the search again. I'm starting over again, so I don't keep you guys here all day. Okay, going back to do the filtering again. Library of Congress, or yeah, subjects. Now I'm just going to look in that quilting and quilt work, whatever it was down here. Oh, quilting under 8. And there's a bunch of stuff, and I know this is a lot of Preston, and I know Preston has a lot of their vertical files on here, or references to things on here. So they've got like a bicentennial quilting thing on here. So talking about the process of the quilting. So this is more subject headings talking about, like I said, the aboutness of something, about, oh, this is about quilting. This is about the quilting process, or this is about, groups meeting about quilting and stuff like that. Which actually does kind of bring me into that. I'll touch on this classification thing really briefly, and we'll get into it more next week. So if we're going to classification, now we've got a bunch of different types of things in here. And again, not as many as you would think, because people just aren't really using them as much. Most of them are just like one entries. We'll do quilts 21. Probably going to be mostly me because I have put this in my system. So it should be, it's probably a lot of Fairfield. While it's spinning, I'm just looking at the quilts. It's actually really kind of cool seeing these, because you're getting this kind of overview and far away vision. So seeing them up close and the detail is always cool, but seeing what the overview of what they're meant to look like far away is really neat. This is one of my favorites in Fairfield, especially being able to see this kind of pull away look at it. In person, it's very vibrant and very bright, but you don't get this whole feeling of it when you're like right up close to it. Okay, so now we get 39 objects that are just quilts. And this is under the classification part. So, and yeah, it's pretty much all me in Fairfield. Oh, there's one in Madison that did a quilting one. So like bicentennial quilt 10 of Madison. And we did see a couple of those bicentennial subject headings and things go by. So especially with the semi-quincentennial coming up in a few years, I know we're going to be looking at like a lot of the old bicentennial stuff just for kicks and kind of getting a history of it. And that's also I was around for it. I remember it. My curator just not. She's too young for that. So kind of going in and seeing what other folks have is kind of interesting. And I'm not putting the spinning on our system, putting this on my internet because it's been really slow lately. Come on, guys. I just want to get to this one record. There we go. So bicentennial quote for town of Madison. They've got a longer description, and they've got oh, they do have a bicentennial quotes classification in here, so that's really good. Along with, oh, because we were looking at that anyway. I would also honestly put that in as a subject heading as well, because it's about the bicentennial very specifically because they're celebrating it, and the kind of overall is about that. So we always used to say that we tried to add at least one subject term from like that page. There's not really a limit on how many to add. It's just whatever is going to make sense to you to help you find your record. Don't like try to add extra ones just to like make sure you have stuff. Make sure the terms are make sense to the record, that you're just not trying to find, that you're not just putting in like cows because there's one cow on this bicentennial quilt. That's very easily taken care of, saying like in the description that there's a cow. This isn't going to tell you, this one quilt block isn't going to tell you specifically about cows and what they are and really what they look like, because it's just such a really basic view of like this little tiny cow. So don't go searching too hard for terminology, but just stuff that's going to be useful. I will say in previous jobs and projects and things, there was a really long ongoing discussion with some of the catalogers in this project about when and how you add subject headings to things. And in the book, the example that I showed at the beginning, you can see it's very specific to what the thing is, like the California architecture and stuff like that on here. And that's really, the whole book is about that kind of thing. So we would put in dogs as a subject heading in things. And the traditional catalogers were like, but this picture isn't about dogs. This picture is about, this man and this kid, or this woman and this kid. And we'd be like, well, yeah, but there's a dog in the picture and you can see him pretty well. More so with this, that you can see the dogs really well. So our way of thinking was, very loosely, there's a dog in the picture and you could really see them, like with the naked eye, without like zooming in or getting a magnifying glass in a photograph. I'm just curious what the Sharon one is. So it's also a very like overarching thing. So some things you're going to be fine just putting dogs in the description, and it'll pick up probably a lot of those other ones. But if you're putting it in, and this one doesn't have it in the subject heading, but this one, honestly, I would put dogs in here as well, because it's hunting, and there's a dog that's going hunting with these guys. So I think that's kind of like integral to the whole picture. I meant to go back to the whole results. So it's kind of, you have to balance it out and figure out where it is. And I would definitely obviously put dogs in these guys as a subject heading. And I don't know if anybody did do dogs. Yeah, dogs. There's 8 that have dogs as a subject heading. So in theory, we'd be able to see the dogs really well in these. Oh, like this is a really good one. That's one of ours that I know you can really see the dog. So being able to search through for like, oh, dog, you must be really able to see him well in this case photograph. Oh, there we go. And I know this is better. This is just me spinning, trying to pull the image up because I think it's kind of high res. But in theory, you can see that there's a dog with this girl in the picture. He's really cute too. So it's very much in traditional books, subject heading, Library of Congress, things are very specific, like that California architecture and all of that. But we can be much more broad because we're not going to need to know that photography, portraits, subjects, dogs. We can whittle things down thanks to the computer. We can whittle things down and get down into finding specific things that way. Oh, you can almost see him. There we go. He's pretty cute. And she's got a good hold on him. So not as blurry as some animals are and some dogs are and stuff. Okay. I'm going to stop share. And we're about 10 of. So does anyone have any questions on subjects, on the authorities? There's a possibility you could have 8 million questions. Like I said, we're going to go over some more things next week too. So any questions on this or any questions on anything else?
It's a lot to think about.
It is. It is. It's really it after you've done it for a little bit, it totally makes sense and it's pretty straightforward. But when you're first jumping into it, oh my God, it's really confusing, like the what and the where and the how you should add things when and all that. So, and this is something that I can like I said, I'm going to do like a couple sessions on this just because of the complexity of it and going down the road in the future, if anybody wants to do like additional things on it, we can. I'm going to stop recording for now.